Hello everyone, and welcome to day 11 of the 12 days of Christmas. Today you might be able to guess what video I'm going to be doing for you based on my background, and you would be correct. Today I'm going to be sharing with you books I read in 2018. So I've worn the only book related shirt that I own, and I did this video last year and really enjoyed doing it, so I decided I would do it again this year, but for the books I read this year. I really do enjoy reading. It's a nice escape, and it's also nice to take a break from screens because I'm looking at screens all day long at work and when I get home and when I'm editing, and basically just looking at screens all the time. So it's nice when I'm able to take a little break from that and escape into a book. It's also very calming, helps with my vocabulary, so there are many reasons that I enjoy reading. And I am on Goodreads, and that's how I keep track of what books I want to read. And they keep track of how many books you read in the year. They have a little competition, or not a competition, but basically you can set a reading goal for the year, and I'm proud to say that I surpassed my reading goal for this year. I always add one more book than the previous year and make that my new reading goal, and I surpassed that by 2, possibly 3 books. I think I've read a total of 17 or 18, I can't remember exactly, but it's around there, which for me is quite a lot of books in one year. So I've enjoyed reading this year. I'm not going to talk to you about every book that I read because we would be here all day, but I am going to share some of them with you, share my thoughts, whether they were good or bad. And what I do is keep notes in my phone because now in December, I would never remember what I thought of the books that I read in January. So I keep notes after I read each book so that I can remember what I wanted to say about it and share that with you. I did just want to say I only own a few of the books, so I'll hold those ones up when I get to them, but the majority of the books I get from the library, so I don't have a physical copy, so I will just put an image up on the side somewhere here so you can see what the book looks like. The first book I wanted to talk about is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I had heard someone talk about this at one time on YouTube and how it was a book that they recommended. And when I went to get it, I did not realize how old this book is. It has been around for a long time. I believe it was originally published, I want to say in the 60s, but I'll try to link all the books below for you so you can get the accurate information. But it's that old, and it's amazing how all of the advice and information is still relevant today in 2018. It gives very useful tips for everyday life and how to interact with people. It's one that I think everybody should read if you haven't. It's one that I was going back and rereading certain pages so I could make sure that certain things really stuck with me. And I think if everyone was to read this book and if everyone tried to implement just some of the things that they talk about in the book, then the world would be a much better place. The next one I want to talk about is Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll. This was a fast read for me. It really kept my interest. It was really relevant to things that have gone on this year. And I found it did not have the most likable main character, but I kept wanting to read anyway in spite of that, because I wanted to know what was going to happen. And I do have to say, I'm not giving any spoilers for any of these books, but when I say this, I'm not giving any spoilers. I didn't love the way that it ended because it kept me wanting more. I didn't feel like it was finished. But it is one that I would recommend you read. You know I love mysteries, and the next one I read was one of the Aurora Tea Garden mysteries. And these are by Charlaine Harris, and the one I read was A Bone to Pick, and for some reason this wasn't my favorite. It didn't really give me the suspense factor. It was entertaining, but it didn't really give clues or leave me wondering about things or, wanting to turn to the next page to find out what was going to happen. Now, I have since watched some of the Aurora Teagarden mysteries that they have made into movies on Hallmark, and I do enjoy watching those. They're fun. While they make it quite obvious with some of the clues, sometimes it's not as obvious as you might think, and they might be trying to trick you, but I do enjoy watching the movies of that. This next book I'm going to talk about is a very special one because it is written by my aunt. And before you click ahead or decide that maybe you don't want to read this, please just wait and hear me out, because she is a published author, but in the past she wrote children's books, and this is her first novel. And me being a reader, I definitely wanted to check it out and see how I liked it. And so her name is Judy Getch Broadman, in case you're looking for her books. And this novel is called She's Not You. And I went into it thinking, oh, yeah, I think this will be great to read her book because she's a relative and see what it's like. And boy, was I shocked and amazed, because this book was a page turner. And I usually read on my lunch at work, and I'd find myself looking at the clock like, oh, I gotta get back to work, but I really want to find out what happens to the characters. And it takes place in a seaside town, and yeah, it just really kept my interest. It's a mystery. I think I forgot to mention that. It's a mystery, which I love. And I mean this in the nicest way possible, but when I would be reading it, I would forget that it was written by her. I would think it was written by some other famous mystery author because it's that good and keeps your interest that much. So I want to just read a little description of it for you because I didn't make many notes on it, and I have the book here. A small isolated fishing village on the tip of Cape Cod, a place where the town's jail has one cell with a broken lock, and the police force consists of the chief and 2 deputies, seems like an unlikely spot for a dead woman to be washing ashore. And yet, so far this summer, 2 bodies have been discovered on the morning tide, both resembling each other and Jamie Jansen. Jamie returns to Oyster Point to clean out and sell her grand aunt Peta's Cape Cod cottage, a place filled with family memories, when there had been family. Her homecoming is marred by the discovery of a woman's body during her morning run along the beach. Huddled around the seaweed-encrusted form is a group of men, including Oyster Point's Chief of Police, Jack Hereford. Is their meeting destiny, chance, or orchestrated by PETA? So, I'm going to just not read too much of this description because I don't want to give you too much information, but I know you can get this on Amazon, I believe Barnes & Noble as well, but I will definitely leave a link in the description, and trust me, you won't be sorry if you get it because it is a really entertaining book, a fast read. And she has written another book that is not related to this one, but is another, I think, historical mystery that I haven't read yet, but I am looking forward to reading. And I believe she's working on a sequel to this one, so there you go. I guess I was on a mystery kick this year because the next one is also a mystery, and it's the Lola Pink Mysteries, which is a series by, I did not write the author's name down, so again, I'll put all these books below for you, but this one was called Shades of Pink, and I had never read this author before, but I really enjoyed this book, so much so that I ended up reading the follow-up books, or there's one follow-up book. I read that one right after. It's kind of a mystery and romance, and I enjoyed the characters and the setting. It's another one that I kept wanting to read. I didn't want to put it down. Oh, I did write notes about the sequel. So the sequel is Shades of Stars, and this one just came out this year, but I really enjoyed it as well. This one was a bit more of a chick lit or female romance story with a little bit of mystery thrown in, but the sequel I wouldn't call as much of a mystery, but I enjoyed them both. Light, fun reads that I suggest you check out if you're looking for a fun romance mystery. I was also on a bit of a nonfiction kick this year, just kind of looking for books that give advice on certain topics or maybe just would teach me something. So the next one I read I found very interesting and is probably one that I could read over and over, but it's another one that I would recommend everybody read because I think it can help anybody in all relationships to communicate with people better and to have better relationships, whether that be a familial relationship, a romantic relationship, or a friendship. And that's The 5 Love Languages. It's very informative, and basically it tells you about the different love languages, how they affect people, and then you can take a quiz online to find out what your primary love language is and what some of your secondary ones are. And it's really insightful to know that, because especially if you have someone that you're, say, in a relationship with that has a completely different love language than you, it's going to make the things you're looking for and the way you're communicating very different. So I have yet to have my husband take it, but I hope that he will at some point, and maybe even read the book, because I think it is very helpful. The next one I read was Something in the Water by Catherine Steadman. I did like this book. It had some twists. You don't always know what's happening, but I did feel a little conflicted about the characters. I did enjoy that the main character's name is Erin, because I don't often find that in books, but I went back and forth between liking her and then being frustrated with her. So I don't know, something about the books I read this year with the characters, they weren't, maybe that's a new thing to write characters that people aren't going to love, but yeah, some of the characters in these books this year were not my favorites. And then one of my favorite female, I'd say, romance relationship authors is Emily Giffin. And I got a little bit behind on her books just because I've been reading so many other books. But the one I read this year was First Comes Love. And I do always enjoy her books, but this one was quite different from her books that I've read. It wasn't so focused on romance, let's say, as it was family and sister relationships. It also focused on dealing with loss and how it affects people differently. Again, this was another one with characters, because I found myself going back and forth between the two characters, liking them one minute and then the other the next. So I would like one character at one point and not the other. They're sisters. Then I would flip and like this sister and not that sister. And then there was times that I just didn't like them at all. By the end, I think we get a good understanding of them, and it was nice to see them go through growth and change as characters throughout the book. But it was not my favorite Emily Giffin book. So I think it was in October, I was really feeling the mystery kind of spooky books. So I read The Death of Mrs. Westaway, and I did really enjoy it. At times I thought, this is not a good mystery, it's so predictable, and I thought I knew exactly what was happening, but I didn't. The author does a really good job of making you think you know what's going on, or making you think what she wants you to think is going on, but really, that's not the case, and it does have a twist ending, which is always fun. So if you're looking for a good, enticing mystery, check that one out. The other one I read was Sharp Objects, and I feel like I've heard a lot of hype around this book. It's by Gillian Flynn, who wrote Gone Girl. I really enjoyed Gone Girl, but I really didn't enjoy this one, and I think they've even made it into a TV show, and maybe I would like the TV show better, but this book, it was honestly hard to get through. I found it disturbing in some parts, and I didn't find the main character likable. Again, having trouble liking the characters. It did keep my interest in that it was a suspenseful book, but it was not my favorite book. And the final book that I'm going to talk about that I read completely through this year, but then I have one other after that, is called The Dance of Connection. Someone recommended that I read it. It's about how to better communicate with others, even regarding difficult topics, and how to not sacrifice yourself or your feelings or your wants in the process. And I liked it. I found the information very helpful and useful, but as I often do with these sorts of books, it's sometimes harder to implement those things that you read about. So I'm still going to try and do that. So those are just some of the books that I read in 2018 that I wanted to talk to you about. Have you ever read any of them? Let me know in the comments if you have and what you thought of them. Or let me know what your favorite book that you read this year was, because I'm always looking for new recommendations. The one I'm currently reading, but it's one of those that can be all the time off and on read, is Zoe Suggs' book that came out this year called Cordially Invited. But I've only read the winter portion, and basically she gives recipes, goes into hostessing on or how to be a good hostess when having guests, gives lots of good and fun ideas. And as I've said, I've only looked at winter, but I've already gotten a lot of great tips for Christmas and New Year's and into Valentine's Day. So I think this is one that I'm going to read over and over each season and really enjoy. But thank you for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it or you're a fellow bookworm like me. Only one video left after this in the 12 days of Christmas. December sure does go by fast. It's probably the busiest month of the year for me, just like it probably is for a lot of you. But I hope that you've been enjoying, and I will see you soon in the final video.